Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa bi ni'matihi. By the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala and His fadl, we're able to come with our second talk for today. The pop-up lecture, How Do the Scholars Past and Present Understand the Usage of the Word Salafi? The second talk we'll be talking about is the ascription to the Salaf, or using the term Salafi obligatory. Bi'idhnillah, we will be using some of the aqwal of the ulama, the statements of the ulama of the past as well as the present, on the obligation of following the Salaf, as well as on the obligation following the Salaf, and is it obligatory to use the nisbah as a name Salafi, inshallah.
No. Alhamdulillah, bismillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. We're going to bring some statements of Sheikh Albani rahimahullah, where he says, أَمَّا الَّذِي يَنْتَسِبُ إِلَى السَّلَفُ الصَّالِحِ. As for the one who describes himself or ascribes himself to the Salaf al-Salih, فَإِنَّهُ يَنْتَسِبُ إِلَى الْأُسْمَةِ عَلَى وَجْهِ الْأُمُومِ. Then verily he is ascribing himself to an usma ala wajh al-umum. He is ascribing himself to safety. He is ascribing himself to a gathering that is free from error ala wajh al-umum. Explain. The companions in the Salaf, if they gathered upon the issue, all of them or the majority of them gathered upon the issue, because we know that the ummah will not gather upon falsehood, meaning the ummah here, the companions. So when they gathered upon an issue, this issue, they will never gather upon falsehood. We know this will be correct, and this will be used as a proof and evidence. So why ascribe yourself to other than them when they had the usma? They had the safety from slips and safety from error. But one statement of a companion can't be used as a proof. But things they all gathered upon together as a group, or the majority of the Salaf, then we know that this is a proof in Islam, and this is a usma. وقد ذكر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من علامة الفرقة الناجية أنها تتمسك بما كان عليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وما كان عليه أصحابه. And we say from the signs of the saved sect is that it holds on, that is firmly grounded and bite on to and hold on to firmly what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was upon and his companions. So فَمَنْ تَمَسَّكَ بِهِمْ كَانَ يَقِينًا عَلَى هُدَى مِنْ رَبِّهِ. And the one who holds on firmly to what they were upon, then no doubt he is upon guidance from his Lord. وَهِيَ نِسْبَةَ تَشَرَّفُ مُنْتَسِبُ إِلَيْهَا. And it said in this description is an honor for the one who ascribes to it. It's an honor to ascribe yourself to the Sahaba and to the Prophet ﷺ and the Salaf. وَتَسِيرُ لَهُ سَبِيلَ فَرْقَ نَاجِيَةً. And this is the way that the path of the saved sect treaded upon. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَنْتَسِبُ آيَةَ النِّسْبَةِ الْأُخْرَى لِأَنَّهَا تَعْدُ وَاحِدًا مِنْ أَمْرَيْنِ. He said, for as for the people who ascribe themselves to other than that, from the different jama'at and the different groups, and ascribe to the different names, he said two things. انتساب إلى شخص غير معصوم. Either they ascribe themselves to an individual who is not saved from error, or إلى الذين يتبعون منهج الذي شخص غير معصوم, or those who follow a way of a person who's not معصوم. فلا عصمة كذلك على العكس منه عصمة أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو الذي أمرنا أن نتمسك بسنته وسنة أصحاب وصحابته من بعده. And he said, so these people are not safe from falling apart, slip and error. Rather, it's the opposite of that. The Prophet ﷺ is the one who commanded us to follow his sunnah and the sunnah of his companions who came after him. And that is the speech of Sheikh Albani pertaining to nisbah.
I think he also brings about بالنسبة للسبب الأول. I think we should touch on that inshallah.
Nah.
He said فنحن نجد في النصوص الشرعية أمر بطاعة آكل إضافة إلى كتاب والسنة كما في قوله تعالى وأطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فتجب طاعة ولي أمر المسلمين مبيع كما تجب طاعة كتاب والسنة مع أنه قد يقتي هو ومن حوله فوجب طاعته دفعا للمفسدة اختلاف وأراء وذلك بشرط معروف لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. He said, فَنَحْنُ نَجِدُ فِي النُّصُوصِ. So when we look and investigate throughout the text, the legislative text, then we find the command of obeying بِطَاعَةِ شَيْءٍ آخَرَ إِضَافَةً إِلَى كِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ. The command of obeying something, connected to the book and the Sunnah, meaning anyone other than the book, connected to the book and the Sunnah. كما في قوله تعالى, as Allah Jalla wa Ala says in His book, in Surah Eesaa, which is the 4th chapter of the Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ, obey Allah and obey His Messenger. Allah started this verse off with, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger. وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ, and those who have been given authority over you. He said, فَتَجِبُ طَاعَةً, Sheikh Al-Albani said, فَتَجِبُ طَاعَةً وَلِيُّ الْأَمْرِ مُسْلِمِينَ مُبَيَّعٍ. So in this verse, it established the obligation of obeying the Muslim leader, the one whom the Muslims have gave the bay'ah. كَمَا تَجِبُ طَاعَةِ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ, just as one is obligated to obey the book and the Sunnah. مَعَ أَنَّهُ قَدْ يُقْتِي هُوَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ, even if the leader be someone who makes mistakes, and those around him. فَوَجِبُ طَاعَتُهُ, so it's obligatory to obey him, and to remove any harm, no matter what the difference of opinions, but that it could be shart al-ma'ruf. And this is known by a well-known condition, where the Prophet ﷺ, لا طاعة للمخلوق في معصية الخالق, and this is comes in the Sahihah, that the Prophet ﷺ said there is no obedience to the creation and disobedience to the Creator. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, وَمَنْ يُشَاكِكِ الرَّسُولِ, also in the same surah, Surah Eesaa, Allah Jalla wa Ala said, وَمَنْ يُشَاكِكِ الرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ هُدًى وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نَوَلُّهُ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِهِ جَهَنَّمَ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. This verse is tremendous and is very important. And for those who are listening, you should take it down. This verse can be found again, we said, in Surah Eesaa. This is a staple verse. This verse here is a staple verse because it's used for multiple evidence, but it's one of the strongest evidences also is used in the obligation of following the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. This verse is used as a staple verse and the strongest evidence to follow the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. Allah said, whoever opposes the messenger after clear guidance have been after have been clarified to him of guidance, وَيَتَّبِعُ, and he follows غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, a way other than the believers, نُوَلِّهُ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِهُ جَهَنَّمَ, we should turn him to the path that he have chosen, and we will ask him to enter the hellfire, and that will be an evil and bold. Also here, the Sheikh Al-Albani, he comments, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يَتَعَالَى وَيَتَّرَفَعْ عَلَى الْعَبْثِ ولا شك ولا ريب أن ذكره سبيل المؤمنين إما هو لحكمة وفائدة بالغة فهو يدل على أن هنالك واجب محمة. So here the Shaykh is saying that Allah Jalla wa Ala, no doubt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either He placed this part where He attached who follow a way other than believers, either He done this due to a hikmah and a benefit which is a comprehensive benefit. He said, فَهُوَ يَدُولُ, either way, it indicates that there is an obligation. Okay? وَهُوَ أَنِ اتِّبَاعَنَا لِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ, and that obligation is that we follow the book of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, book of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Not only are we obligated to follow both the Kitab and the Sunnah, but we are also obligated, the Shaykh said, يَجِبُ أَنْ يَكُونَ وَافَقَ مَكَانَ عَلَيْهِ مُسْلِمُونَ أَوَّلُونَ. We are also not obligated to make sure that our actions is in accordance to that which the first generations of Muslims were upon. And again, that's the companions with one Allah Ta'ala alayhim. وَهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الرَّسُولِ. He said, they are the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. Then there are those who came after him, the Tabi'een. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. Then there are those who came after them, أَتْبَعُ تَابِعِينَ. وَهَذَا مَا تَنَادِي بِهِ دَعْوَةَ سَلَفِيَّةً. And this is what is used normally when the people talk about da'wat salafiyya, they're talking about the Qurun al-Mufaddila Thalitha. They're talking about that 3 virtuous generation, the people we just mentioned. وَمَا رَكَزْتُ عَلَيْهِ فِي أَسَّ دَعْوَاتِهَا وَمِنْهَجُ تَرْبِيَتِهَا. Okay? He said, إِنَّ دَعْوَةَ salafiyya بِحَقٍّ تَجْمَعُ أُمَّةً. وَأَيْ دَعْوَةَ أُخْرَى تَفَرَّقَ أُمَّةً. So he said that rarely the da'wah salafiyya, the call to the salafiyya. Now the salaf in the da'wah salafiyya, we said this multiple times for the statement of Sheikh Salih Fazan in his lecture, is a difference between da'wah salafiyya and the salaf. Okay, it's a difference. Alright, but here da'wah salafiyya is calling to the manhaj, the aqidah, the creed, the application, the characteristic, the mannerism, the transactions, all of that. That is da'wah salafiyya. Whatever the salaf was upon from those three virtuous generations and the imam that followed them, and speech, creed, and all of that, that's da'wah salafiyya. As far as the salaf, is separate from that. So he said that rarely the da'wah salafiyya, what it does, it unites the ummah. Let's stop here. There is a narration that the Prophet ﷺ said that my ummah would never what? Unite upon dalala, upon falsehood. No. And we need to understand that if you find yourself in Sheikh Fawzan in his explanation to a famous poem that was written by the son of the Sahib Sunnah in Abu Dawood, whose name is Abdullah, he got a poem known as Al-Ha'iyah. It deals with the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah in terms of Asma' wa Sifat and the likes like that. However, in that particular poem, he mentioned something about sticking to the Sunnah in the Book of Allah. Sheikh Fawzan made a beautiful point. He said that Allah Jalla wa Ala in the book, he mentioned about how the Jews and the Christians, they differ after the knowledge reached them. So if a group of people are saying that they follow in the same thing, but they have multiple differences, they're not on the same path, then they are resembling the Yahuds and the Christians, and they are not actually following the book of the Sunnah like they claim they are, because there will be no disunity. And this is the point you need to understand. The Sheikh said, the da'wah salafiyya bihaqin, the true da'wah salafiyya, tajma'u ummah, it unites the ummah, not dividing. وَأَيْ دَعْوَةُ أُخْرَى, any other da'wah other than the da'wah salafiyya, it tafarruqu ummah, okay? It tafarruqu, it divides them, it separates them, it splits them. That's what it does. It parts them, it separates them. That's any other call other than the call of the companions with Allah Ta'ala alayhim. Okay, that's any other call other than that. Yaqul Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us in the Quran, that comes in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah said, وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, and be with those who are truthful. وَمَنْ يُفَرْقَ بَيْنَ كِتَابٍ وَالسُّنَّةِ مِنْ جِهَةٍ وَبَيْنَ السَّلَفِ الصَّالِحِ مِنْ جِهَةٍ أُخْرَى لَا يَكُونُ صَادِقًا أَبَدًا. Shaykh Al-Albani said, whoever separates from the book and whoever separate or distinguish between the book and the Sunnah from one angle, and then from the Salaf al-Salih from another angle, the pious predecessors, they can never be considered what we call truthful.
And what's the importance of that?
The importance,
if you separate the Salaf from the book and the Sunnah, what's the importance of that? The
importance of that, how you going to understand the book of Allah and the Sunnah without them? They're the one who transmitted the Quran to us. We wouldn't even know what the Quran was if it wasn't for the companions.
Subhanallah.
You wouldn't even know what the verses was. In turn, Jibreel alayhi salam, he got it from Allah, and then he spread it, and he transmitted to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, related to him, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam related to his ummah, which was his companions. His companions brought it to us.
Subhanallah.
How will we have it? How will we know how to make one rak'ah correctly according to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam without saying haddathana qala, haddathana wa akhbarana? You have to have that.
Subhanallah.
For those who say leave off hadith, it's a refutation against them. How are you going to leave off narrations?
Subhanallah.
When Allah Jalla wa Ala said, Inna anzawna ilayka dhikra litubayyana al-nas ma nuzila ilayhim. Al-ayah fi Surah Al-Nahl, the 16th chapter of the Quran, Allah said, and where we have revealed to you the dhikr, meaning the Quran, in order that you be an explainer, a shadow of what is being revealed. So Allah made Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the one who explains his book. So you got to refer back to the Sunnah. So anyway, here he says, in the Da'wah al-Salafiyya, we explained that, and he said, "Amma bi nisbati lis-sabab al-thani." As for the second reason why it's obligatory to latch on and follow the manhaj of the Salaf, and also to ascribe oneself to the Salaf, he said the second reason is because فَالطَّوَائِفْ وَالْأَحْزَابُ الْآن لَا تَلْتَفِتْ مُطْلَقًا إِتْبَاعٍ سبيل المؤمنين الذي جاء ذكره في الآية وَيَدُهُ بَعْدَ أحاديث منها. And he's going to show you. He said because those different groups and sects that have divided themselves in the present day era, and now he must have said this about over how long now?
I mean, the Sheikh's been dancing like 99, so that's 18. I mean, he was alive when he's obviously, so we talking over 20 years ago?
Over 20 years ago. that there was a lot of groups in schism. A lot of groups, and it's still like that now. Even it's not even more. It's a lot of groups. If it's not even have increased since then, but it's a lot of groups and schisms. So he said that in terms of they don't look unrestrictedly at following Sabil al-Mu'mineen, and it's important that Ibn Kathir. You should know that Ibn Kathir later on we're going to read that Ibn Kathir's statement that what is understood by Sabil al-Mu'mineen in this verse that we mentioned for Surah Nisa is talking about the Sahabas, following the way of the Sahabas. He said, "Alladhi ja'a dhikruhu fil ayah," that which is mentioned, that he mentioned in the verse, وَيَتُهُ بَعْدَ hadith, and also he said, I would love to strengthen it with some hadith. From them is the hadith which is known as the Iftiraq al-Ummah, the hadith al-Iftiraq al-Ummah, and it just reached me, alhamdulillah, that a lot of the scholars of the past, from among them, even Imam Sana'ani, as well as even Sheikh Islam Ibn Tyamiyyah, they got a nice, beautiful hadith. A nice explanation to this particular hadith, which is called Iftiraq al-Ummah, the dividing or the separating of the Ummah. They got some beautiful works on that by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And he also said, Hadithu Firqa Thalatha wa Sab'een, talking about the narration that deals with the Ummah divided into 73 different sets. All of them being the fire set 1. ووصفها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, بأنها هي التي على مثل ما أنا عليه يوم وأصحابي. He said the Prophet ﷺ had described this particular firqa, this particular group, because he said all of the group is going to be in the hellfire except one, and that particular group that he said that was going to be free from it it's the group which is upon that which me and my companions are today. وهذا الحديث يشبه تلك آية التي تذكر سبيل المؤمنين. He said that this narration, and this is the benefit of taking from the scholars, it resembles the verse that we just mentioned earlier. It resembles the verse وَمَنْ يُشَاكِكِ الرَّسُولِ, whoever opposes the messenger after clear guidance have come to them, وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and follow away other than the believers. Here the Prophet ﷺ said, those who are upon what I am upon and my companions are upon today. Okay, so now it shows you that you must have both. Meaning when you follow the Kitab and Sunnah, it must be in the way that the Prophet understood it, and the way that the companions, Allah Ta'ala alayhim ajma'een, in their application of it. So he said, وَمِنْهَا, also another hadith that we call to attention is the hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariya. And for those who have Ibn Nawawi 40 hadith, this is the 27th hadith that Ibn Nawawi placed in his 40 hadith from Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He mentioned in this particular narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ مَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. Upon you is my sunnah and the sunnah of my rightly guided Khalifa after me. So even هُنَاكَ sunnatan. So the Shaykh, he said here, therefore, there exists two sunnahs. Alright, Sunnat al-Rasul or Sunnat al-Khulafa al-Rashidin. We have the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then we have the sunnah of the rightly guided successors. وَلَا بُدْ لَنَا نَحْنُ مُتَآخِرِينَ. And he said it is a must for us, meaning those who came afterwards, and نَرْجِعِ إِلَى كِتَابٍ وَالسُّنَّةِ, to refer back to the Kitab wa Sunnah. وَالسَّبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Now, it's a third thing. You can't just refer back to Kitab wa Sunnah, you must refer back to what? Sabil al-Mu'mineen. And we already explained who they were. They were the companions. وَلَا يَجُوزُ أَن نَقُولُ. It's not permissible that you say, إِنَّنَا نَفْهَمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالسُّنَّةَ إِسْتِقْلَالًا دُونَ الْإِلْتِفَاتِ إِلَى مَا كَانَ عَلَيْهِ سَلَفُنَا الصَّالِحُ. He said, it's not permissible that we say that rather we understand the book of Allah and the Sunnah free of not turning back or turning our attentions and our direction back upon that which our prior predecessors were upon. So he said, وَلَا بُدَّ مِن نِسْبَةٍ مُمَيِّزَةٍ دَقِيقَةٍ فِي هَذَا الزَّمَانِ فَلَا يَكْفِي أَن نَقُولَ أَنَا مُسْلِمٌ فَقَطْ. He said, so وَلَا بُدَّ مِن نِسْبَةٍ. He said, وَلَا بُدَّ مِن نِسْبَةٍ مُمَيِّزَةٍ. So it is a must that we have a ascription that is distinctive and that is a minute is daqiqatan, meaning that you have to make sure it's detailed, distinctive ascription, right? Fi hada zaman, and especially in this time because there are so many different groups. So he said, فَلَا يَكْفِي أَن نَقُولُ. So it's not sufficient that we just rely and say أنا مسلم فقط. I am a Muslim. Why? Because you have so many different groups. He said, our madhab is Islam, or my madhab is Islam. فَكُلُّ فِرْقَةَ تَقُولُ ذَلِكَ. Every group that's out there say that. ISIS,
yeah.
Qaeda,
Sufis,
Maturidiyya, Shia, Ikhwani Muslimin,
Takfiriyun,
Jamaat Tabligh. So many different groups, they all say that we are Muslim and our madhab is Islam. They all say that we're Muslims and our madhab is Islam. So he said, Rafida wa Ibadi wa Qadiani wa ghayrihim min al-firq. فَمَا الَّذِي يُمَيِّزَكَ عَنْهُ. How would you distinguish yourself from them? What would be that determining factor to say, okay, so-and-so say he's Muslim, Shiite, what's the difference between you and them? How would you distinguish yourself? He said, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ أَنَا مُسْلِمٌ عَلَى الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ لَمَا كَفَ عَيْدًا. He said, so if you were to say that I am a Muslim upon the Kitab and the Sunnah, then that would not be sufficient. لأن أصحاب الفرق من عشائر وماتريدية وحزبيين يدعون اتباع هذين أصلين كذلك. Because we have people from the Maturidin, the Asha'ira, the Hizbiyin, they all claim this. They follow the Kitab and the Sunnah. ولا شك أن تسمية واضحة جلية مميزة بينة هي أن تكون أنا مسلم على الكتاب والسنة وعلى منهج السلف الصالح وهي أن تكون باختصار أنا سلفي. So no doubt the clear and elusive, distinctive, right? واضح, clear description and name is that we say, or that you say, that I am a Muslim upon the book and the Sunnah, upon the minhaj of our Salaf Salih, our pious predecessor. And you can say this in summary or in brief, and a Salafi. Now I want to stop here, right? Because later on in our speech, you're going to hear some more harsh words from our present day scholars. And remember, he said this over 20 years ago, and he was clarifying the matter, making it understood that how do you distinguish yourself from these other jama'at? He wasn't talking about taking the word Salafi, the name, and parading it. Taking the name and not fulfilling the conditions of it. Taking the name and not following those who you're ascribing yourself to. The Sheikh wasn't talking about that. He was referring to a way that you can basically say this as a clear distinction is by saying that you are Salafi and applying that. But it must be understood, as we read earlier, Sheikh bin Baz, إِذَا كَانَ صَادِقًا. You still have to be sadiqan in your description, and your application, and your following. So just saying you Salafi, because now we have, in our daytime, we got the Khawarij. They say they Salafi.
I should say that.
Also, they quote from Ibn Tyamiyyah. They quote from Muhammad ibn Wahhab. They quote from Ibn Qayyim. Alright? I mean, when it comes to creed, they follow us on the same thing. But when it comes to certain parts of creed, like Hakimiyya and things like that, you find that they differ. You find that they go astray in those means. So you got to be careful, because a person now, just like they did back then, we found that the Prophet ﷺ called us Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as we discovered. So what did the Shiites started to do? The Rafis started to do?
So the same thing.
They said we was Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So now ask yourself, what do we do now? The people that say that they Salafi now, what they doing now to the people that are Jama'ah? They say, hold up, well, we Salafi too. So you got to be careful in terms of throwing the name around. MashaAllah, the brother going to continue, inshallah. We're in with the words of Sheikh Sheikh Al-Albani, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. Yeah, right here, وَعَلَيْهِ فَإِنِّي سَأُرُودُ النُّصُوصَ الَّتِي تُوجِبُ اتِّبَاعُ السَّلَفِ أَسْأَلُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَسِرَ. Yeah, Sheikh Suhaimi statement. No.
I gotta find it. Wait a second. I was
yeah. Here it is, right here.
Okay.
قال الشيخ صالح السحيمي.
نعم. قال الشيخ صالح السحيمي حفظه الله. ومن هناك التزام إنما يكون دائما وأبدا بالمنهج الإسلامي بما شرع الله لنا، وليس التزاما بالأشخاص أو تنظيمات أو جماعات التي هي دائما محل للخطأ والصواب. He said from here, he says that this sticking to this description, إنما يكون دائما وأبدا, that always this description will be always connected or ascribed to the way of Islam and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated for us. So saying or describing yourself to the Salaf, the Sahaba, is always going to be connected. This is the way of Islam. It's the manhaj and the way of Islam. Said ليس التزام بالأشخاص. It's not sticking to personalities and individuals. It's sticking to who? The Salaf and their beliefs and their attitude and their behavior and their implementation. وَأَوْ تَنْظِمَاتٍ, not to organizations. أو جماعات and groups. التي هي دائما محل الخطأ أو سواء. That always you're going to find that these groups and these organizations are always going to be able to make mistakes, or they'll correct sometimes. But if you follow the Salaf and you stick to them, you won't find these slips and these mistakes in Aqidah and Manhaj and behavior, because they were what? Giving the tazkiyah by the Prophet ﷺ and his messenger, that they will never, ever, ever gather upon what? Falsehood.
What did Abdullah Mas'ud say? Stick to those who are dead.
Nah, because they safe from the fitna.
Because they safe from the fitna.
Because they safe from the fitna.
They already passed, mashallah.
Well, Shaykh Suhaimi says, وَعَلَيْهِ فَإِنِّي سَأَوِّلُ النُّصُوصَ الَّتِي تُوجِبَ اتِّبَاعَ السَّلَفِ أَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ أَنْ يَسِيرَ لِي. Before we continue, I need to stop back up there again. Some people say that the scholars aren't talking about this. Oh, subhanAllah.
He just explained it. The scholars are talking about this. The scholars are speaking out against. Notice how he described what it is to describe to the nisbah. He said, لَيْسَ الْإِلْتِزَامُ بِالْأَشْخَاصِ تَنْدِيمَاتِ الْجَمَاعَات. It's important. When you ascribe yourself to the nisbah, you need to know who the Salaf is. That's who you're ascribing to. You got to make sure you're not ascribing it because you find a certain group of people that you are attracted to, their personality, and you're following it because they're following that way. La.
SubhanAllah.
All right? Nor are you following it because certain organizations that you are part of, that you like the way that they move, you're following it. Nah. Nor jama'at. It have to be strictly and solely for the fact that you are following the kitab and the sunnah mukhlisan, sadiqan, lillah. All right? For Allah Jalla wa Ala, and on top of that, you're following the way that the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has prescribed and his companions understood it. Barakallahu feek.
No, Jazakallah khair. Oh, well then, the Shaykh is saying that inshallah Allah has made it easy for him. He's going to bring some nusus that shows the obligation of following the Salaf or ascribing yourself to them. Oh, well then, قال تعالى ومن يشقق الرسول من بعد ما تبين له هدى ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين نوله ما تولى نصله جهنم وساءت مصيرا. In this ayah, Shaykh Al-Bani actually explained before, saying that one who opposes the messenger, right, after the clear evidence has been clarified to him, and the guidance, and he follows another way or another understanding or another path other than that of the believers. And when this ayat was revealed, who was the believers? The companions of the Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then his place will be the hellfire, and what an evil destination. Qala Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, ay min salaka ghayra tariq al-shari'ah. He said, meaning whoever transverses another way other than the path that was legislated. التي جاء بها الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. What the messenger came with. The messenger came with a way of implementing religious injunctions and how to be spiritual, how to get close to Allah. The only way to be upon that is to go and see what the messenger of Allah was upon and traversing that way. Then he says, في شق وشرع في شق وذلك عن عمد منه وبعد ما ظهر له ما تبين له انتضاح. And he says that this is talking about for the one who does it on purpose. Not somebody who makes ijtihad, not somebody who maybe didn't reach him, the understanding of it, not somebody who just made a mistake, maybe he didn't understand the issue all the way, he only had part of the hadith or some of it, and he didn't understand it, and if he'd known the truth, he would have followed it. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about not looking for people's mistakes, so we're not free from error, none of us. We're talking about people who after it was clarified to them, not hollering and screaming, clarified by the ulama to this individual. Clarified meaning there was no room for wiggling, no room for moving this way or that way, not right or not left. It was clarified to him, then he still, after that knowledge, opposed the messenger and the companions. When it says, وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and to follow a path other than the other believers, which are the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, هذا ملازم للصفة الأولى ولكن قد تكون مخالفة للنص الشارع قد تكون لما اجتمعت عليه أمة محمدية فيما اتفاقهم عليه تحقيق. And he says that this ملازم للصفة الأولى, he says that to go against the path of the believers automatically means you went against who? The Prophet ﷺ. Person different with the Prophet ﷺ is different with the companions. Because it's mulazim. It's together. That sifa is together. If somebody shaqas the Rasul, right, then automatically that means he's different with who? With the companions of Muhammad ﷺ. If somebody different with the companions, he's automatically different what? With the Prophet ﷺ. Because Allah put them together as to be followed in this ayah. He put them together to be followed in this ayah. And it doesn't matter if it's something that after the time of the Prophet, the Sahaba agreed upon, right? The Sahaba all came together and said, this is from Islam, but they all agreed that this is the truth. Then you can't differ. If you differ with them on that, then it's different with the Prophet ﷺ. فإنه ضمنت لهم أسمى في اجتماعهم وخطأ تشريفا لهم وتعظيما لنبيهم. And he says that that all of this comes together when they're together and they're grouping together. It's safe from what? Error. When the Sahaba gather upon an issue and the Tabi, all the Salaf gather on an issue, then it was safe from what? Error. Because we know that the law will never allow this ummah to what? Gather upon false, and that ummah is talking about the Salaf. And it says, so they were safe from these mistakes as honor for them and an honor for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال شيخ الإسلام رحمه الله إن كال من الوصفين يقتدي بعيد لأنه مستلزما للآخر. So the same thing we just basically said. He said both of these attributes are, we can say they are intertwined with one another, meaning one necessitates the other. One necessitates the English. One necessitates the other. فهذا مشقة الرسول اتباع غير سبيل المؤمنين, meaning opposing the messenger, right, and following a path other than the way of the believers. It's the same thing. One necessitates the other. You disobey the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is disobeying the Sahaba. To go oppose the Sahaba is opposing the messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasallam. وَمَنْ شَقَّهُ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِهِمْ وَهَذَا ظَاهِرٌ. And he says again, so the one who opposes their way, this is clear that it's talking about the same, that they both necessitate the other. وَاتِّبَاعَ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِهِمْ فَقَدْ شَقَّ أَيْضًا. And whoever follows a path other than them, then he has opposed the messenger too. He also has opposed the messenger. فإنه قد جعل له مدخلا في وعيد, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him enter into that threat together. Meaning, an individual opposes the messenger, and he opposes the messenger, he opposes the companions. If he opposes the companions, opposes the messenger, they all have been together in what? In that wa'id, that threat of what? The hellfire. Subhanallah. نسأل الله عافية. فدل على أنه وصف مؤثر في الذم, فمن خرج عن إجماعهم فقد اتبع غير سبيلهم قطعا والآية توجد ذم ذلك. And he says that أنه وصف, he says, so this description, what, is for the one who leaves out from their ijma'ihim, from what the Sahaba has gathered upon as the truth, and they follow a path other than theirs. This ayat has what made it obligatory. These people are blameworthy. This ayat has made it obligatory that the one who follows the way other than the way of the companions, that they are the ones who are blameworthy, and mentioned, the threat is mentioned to them, they'll be from the people of the hellfire, and we ask Allah to save us from that. وقوله تعالى آمين والسابقون أولون من المهاجرين وأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وأعد لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم. In the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says those are those forerunners of faith, or those people, the first generation of Islam, and the muhajirin, from those who made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, wa ansar, those who were in Medina waiting for them, and those who followed them upon goodness, those a'imma, and those who traversed that path after those three generations. Those generations that came after the companions, and after them, those who follow them in good. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what has been, right, promised for them is Jannat, gardens under which rivers flow, and they remain there forever, and that is the greatest of success. So the opposite is for those who transverse the path, who don't leave off the path for the Sahaba. The opposite is for them. The one who leaves off the path, we mentioned the wa'id, that they were threatened with the hellfire. But those who stick to their path and hold on to it, the opposite is for them. ذَلِكَ فَوْزٌ عَظِيمٌ, which is جَنَّاتِ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ, in the gardens of paradise.
Also, this verse can be found in Surah Tawbah, Surah 9. This verse can be found in Surah Tawbah, Surah 9, inshallah ta'ala. And you can look it up, inshallah ta'ala. Make sure you put down the verses that we mentioned, inshallah. Not for you, I'm just saying for the people that's watching, so that they can go back and refer back to it, inshallah ta'ala. You can see how the ulama use these particular verses to support their evidence, inshallah. Support their claim.
Jazakallah khair. Qala Ibn Kathir rahimahullah. Said by Ibn Kathir, may Allah have mercy on him, يخبر تعالى أن رضاعه عن سابقين من المهاجرين وأنصار. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed us of His pleasure and His happiness with those who came before us from those who made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, and the Ansar, those who were in Medina, and Tabi'een lahum bi ihsan, and those who followed them in goodness from the Tabi'een, and also the students of the Tabi'een, and those after them from the Aimah to Sunnah that came afterwards. وَرِضَاهُمْ عَنْهُمْ, and their pleasure with Allah. They were pleased to be upon this path. They were pleased of Allah as a Lord. بِمَا أَعْدَ لَهُمْ بِإِنْ جِنَّاتٍ نَعِيمٍ وَالنَّعِيمٍ مُقِيمٍ, and that what Allah has prepared for them from gardens that is ever living, that they will reside in forever. May Allah make us from them. Allahumma ameen ya Rabb. Qala Imam Shawkani rahimahullah, and said by Shawkani rahimahullah, Allah be pleased, may Allah have mercy on him. وَالْمَعْنَ وَالَّذِينَ تَبِعُونَ بِإِحْسَانٍ, the meaning of those who follow them in goodness, الَّذِينَ تَبِعُوا السَّابِقِينَ وَأَوَّلِينَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَأَنصَارِ, those who follow the foremost, the first generations from the Muhajirin and Ansar. And let's think about that, right? Those who follow them. Is it just by saying the word Salafi, I'm Salafi? Is that following them? Or is it by living the lifestyle that they lived and what you believed?
Well, the ulama already before, from what we already talked about, they already addressed that.
Exactly.
They said you must follow Qawlan, Amalan, I'tiqadan, and everything. All that must be grouped together in terms of using the terminology for it. However, the point of bringing this second talk, inshallah ta'ala, for those who are watching, we're leading you up to something. And if you look at the titles that we're going to have, inshallah ta'ala, you can see what we're going to talk about, because this talk here is establishing the evidence for the obligation of following the Salaf. It's obligatory from what we just presented and from the ulama said. It is obligatory from the verses, from Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, and from the ahadith, that you must follow the Salaf. Also, as taking the Ascription Salafi, okay, as far as taking the Ascription Salafi, you can take that ascription, inshallah ta'ala. After you finish that, we'll bring some statements of the ulama in terms of it, but it has conditions with taking that ascription. And you have to understand that the present day fitna that we find ourselves in today, that there are people who use this description and they're not truthful in fulfilling the obligation that goes along with this description. And, we have to address that. And the present day scholars have addressed it. Allahu Akbar. They have addressed it. And we should see that later on when we bring the statements of the present day scholars and addressing those who claim the title bid'awah by way of claim of the word Salafi. Because a lot of people are saying they Salafi. Just because you know that there are the three virtuous generations doesn't mean that. That's what the brother's saying here. It is a lot that comes along with that must be encompassed. It encompasses a lot, inshallah. Encompasses a lot. Encompasses a lot.
وَمَعْنَ وَالَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ وَالَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُوهُمْ سَابِقِينَ أَوَّلِينَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَأَنصَارِ. He said the meaning of the ayat in Surah Tawbah, and those who follow them in righteousness or in good, is those who follow the first generations from the Awwaleen min al-Muhajirin and the Ansar, which are the companions. هم متأخرون عنهم من الصحابة فمن بعدهم إلى يوم القيامة. And this is for those who came after them, to the day of judgment. Call Imam Sa'di rahimahullah. Imam Sa'di, he says, بِإِتِقَادَاتِ وَأَقْوَى وَأَعْمَالِ. What's following them? In your beliefs and your statements and actions. فَهَؤُلَاءِ هُمُّ الَّذِينَ سَلَمُوا مِنْ ذَمِّ وحصل لهم نهاية مدح وأعظم كرامات من الله سبحانه وتعالى. He said, those people who follow them in belief, statement, actions, and behavior, these are those who are safe from blame, and they will receive the ending that is praiseworthy, and they will get the karamat min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is entering into what? Paradise and Allah's mercy. and Allah's forgiveness in the hereafter. لَعَلَّ أَكْمَلَ فِي مَا بَعْدِ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And we hope to finish what is after that by the permission
يقول
of
الشيخ
Allah.
الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى. Sheikh Islam ibn Taymiyyah is reported to have said in his Majmu' Fatawa, he said, لا عيب على من أظهر مذهب السلف وانتسب إليه واعتزي إليه بل يجب قبول ذلك منه باتفاق فإن مذهب السلف لا يكون إلا حقا. Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that there is no deficiency or no blemish or no blame here. Here meaning that there is nothing wrong in this case. Laysa alayhi, there is nothing wrong for an individual. He is not to be blamed or censored for making apparent the madhab of as-salaf. Wantasibu ilayhi, nor ascribing himself to it, right, or using it as an inscription. Wa'atazi ilayhi, and clinging firmly to it. He said, Bal, rather it is yajibu qabul dhalik. Rather it is obligatory that this be accepted from him. He said, bittifaqin, by unanimous agreement. فَإِنَّ مَذْهَبُ salaf, he said, for the madhab of the salaf, لَا يَكُونَ إِلَى حَقٍ, right, that it will not be except the truth. Meaning that the madhab of the salaf, it is the truth. There is nothing outside of it except that it is the truth. That meaning the person who practices it and ascribes himself to it and follow it, know that he is following that which is the haqqa. He is following that which is haqqa. I want to comment here because some people, they take this statement out of context. Number one, this is a scholar. And Sheikh Saleh Ali Sheikh, he did a lecture, a muhadara. He did a lecture on addressing how do we study the books of Sheikh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim. How do we look at it? And it's a couple of points he brought. One of the points was that it's imperative for the student of knowledge, when reading the works of these two great imams, that you read it with a contemporary scholar. That you read it with a contemporary scholar, because the scholar can sometimes, it can definitely direct you into that some words and speeches of these authors might be in response to something. It might be, talking about a particular incident. It might be using terminology that was used during that time. As we seen that Sheikh Uthaymeen was explaining about how harsh they was talking about the people innovators, because these people have knowledge what they was upon and it was leading other people astray. So you might find different reasons why things happening. So when we go into Majmu' Fatawa, when we just take this statement and then we just translate the statement and put it out there, like, see, there's nothing wrong. You can call yourself Salafi. There's nothing wrong. Even Sheikh Islam is saying, who is he talking about?
Without the background story to anything.
Who is he talking about? And what reference? What is it being said? So you gotta look at that. You gotta analyze that. And what reference? And inshallah ta'ala, what is he talking about? La aibu ala man adhabu madhab salaf, meaning that you can't fault someone for holding and clinging onto the Sahabas.
No.
So for those people during that time that was upon innovation, that was pointing the finger at people who clinged firmly to the Sunnah and made it a problem for them to do that, the Sheikh said, La aib. There's no aib. So you have to look at that context. Who is he talking to? The people who was censoring the people of the Haqq, the Ashab al-Hadith, for clinging onto the narrations, for clinging onto the Salaf, for clinging onto the Sahabas, clinging onto the Tabi'een, the A'immat al-Huda. They will censor them and they will blame and they will make fault and do so forth. So he was saying, La aibu and madhab salaf. There's nothing wrong. Wantisabu ilay. You can't find fault with a person like that for holding on to that, because that's the way to go. And we just seen that from the evidence of Allah Jalla wa Ala in the Quran.
So he's refuting a specific situation.
Exactly. He's talking about a certain situation. It doesn't mean that now you can go around, inshallah, and we're going to get to that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for later on. I'm going to save that because that's for the next, that's for the talk that's going to come, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. Subhanakallahu bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.